Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. I'd like to call to order our Middlesex County Council meeting for Tuesday, September the 14th. Well, today has been a great day with a visioning session, our Middlesex London Paramedic Service Recognition and Staff Appreciation Time, and now this hybrid meeting. Today, while it really feels like all is right in the world and that we are really back to normal. As municipal leaders, I do not need to tell you about the importance of voting. A week from now, we will know what our new federal government looks like. It is not only a right as Canadians that we have to vote, it is a privilege. I know, like me, you have likely been disheartened by what we have seen on this election trail. From the negative vitriol that we have seen and heard from some candidates, to the arrogant and childish exchanges during debates, and to the ugliness of vulgarities and violence carried out by attendees at public rallies. I shake my head in disappointment. I grew up in a political family and was always involved in door knocking, sign crews, and those were the best crews to be on, corner waving, and always attended rallies and all candidates' meetings. Those campaigns were exciting, tense, spirited, but most of all, respectful. Sure, there was debate, not only between candidates, but volunteers as well. But I also remember sharing beers together with the other side. As fellow elected officials, we must demand better from our fellow elected officials and from our voters. There are many important issues on the table and plenty of opportunity to debate those. However, I would encourage you or any voter watching our meeting today to ask your candidates how they will do better. As Canadians, we have prided ourselves in how we carry ourselves on a world stage, how others view our sense of sensibility. Let that not be lost on any of us. With less than a week to go, you can still push the candidates for answers. We are extremely fortunate in the two ridings that represent Middlesex County to have candidates from all parties who are educated, informed, and passionate about community and country. And I want to thank those who have put their name forward. As we all know, that is a very difficult thing to do. To anyone watching this meeting, make sure you take the time to get to know your candidates and to vote. You still have the time to do so. To be able to take part in a democratic process is the envy of many across the world. Do not miss out on that privilege. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest for this meeting? Seeing none, you've had a chance to look at the minutes. Is there any business arising from those minutes? There's been none noted. And the minutes have been in front of you for August the 10th. And if nothing has to be amended, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve those as presented. Councillor Richards and Councillor Mayhew. All opposed? And those are carried. We do have a deputation this afternoon. They haven't joined in yet, so we'll just keep going on and then we'll circle back as soon as they jump into the meeting. Are there any inquiries or notices of motion? Moving on to reports, we don't have any. New business, our first report is actually a report from me, and it's with regards to the appointment to the Western Fair Association Board of Governors. I hope that you've all had the opportunity to read the background letter. I won't go into it. Certainly, Middlesex County has always had a strong relationship in the past with Western Fair, and looking to expand on that beyond just a programming council appointment. There's a few openings that the Western Fair Board of Governors is experiencing, and with that, they have asked that Middlesex County have a representative, and I'm pleased to recommend Councillor John Brennan as the appointment. I'd say if there's any questions or comments at this point. If not, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder to approve that appointment. Wow, lots of hands there. Guess there's no question. There's support for Councillor Brennan. So Councillor Smith and Councillor Cornelissen. All opposed? And that is carried. And thank you very much, John, for agreeing to that appointment. I think you'll be a great representative on the Western Fair. Oh, yes, we can applaud. Our next report that we've got is actually from IT and Dirk. And I don't know who's going to be speaking to it, but I'll turn it over. It's Municipal Modernization Project, the Development Tracking Solution.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I'm going to start us off today, and then Dirk's going to get into some of the details, and then I'm going to finish off the report. So this is just an update on the modernization projects that we've been working towards. I'm just going to give a quick background here. I know many of you and your local councils as well as county council have been hearing a lot about these projects. It's really a great program that's been helping us push a lot of things forward. So when the province developed and launched the Municipal Modernization Program, which is designed to assist small and rural municipalities across Ontario to support the review and development and delivery of modern and efficient municipal services. In March 2019, there was the unconditional one-time modernization funding. Middlesex County received $725,000 in one-time funds at that time. Municipal modernization programs intake 1 and 2. In 2019, the province, building on its previous investment, decided to assist again and transform service delivery, development, and launch the application-based funding program under the Municipal Modernization Program. The first intake period saw applications submitted for service delivery reviews in December of 2019. As part of the modernization program intake 2, the county and local municipalities through the CAO working group identified priority projects for the modernization, implementation, and review streams. These projects included enterprise asset management, payroll services automation, development tracking solution, and procurement services review. And today, this report concerns the development tracking solution RFP that we recently undertook. And I'll pass it off to Dirk here, unless anyone has any questions to get started here.
Doesn't appear so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you then, and through the warden. So the development review and approval is in our view a core municipal service. And we feel that developers, the public, local councils, county council, consultants, et cetera, have a significant stake in an efficient, transparent development review process. So as you know, we're currently using largely manual operations. We have a number of digital workarounds as we kind of characterize it. And that's really come to the forefront during COVID while we're all working remotely and while we've had to change quite quickly how we operate. So the intent of the RFP would be to onboard a web-based integrated workflow software solution that would, in our view, modernize, streamline, and really automate the development intake and review approvals process. And similar, many municipalities have moved to a digital building system where you can apply for your building permits online and do that all digitally. It's basically a similar solution to that. We think it would modernize those sort of legacy manual processes and would move forward in that direction. So the software solution would be used for all county planning files, and then local municipalities would have the ability to opt in for local planning files should they choose to. And I pass it back to Chris.
Thanks, Dirk. So a little bit of just a background on the process we went through once we received the funding. The development tracking solution RFP was uploaded to Middlesex County's bids and tenders on July 30th with a closing date for submissions of August 25th. Submission reviews occurred the week of September 6th with the selection committee that included county staff as well as local municipal staff. We received 2 proposals for the project, and they were evaluated by the selection committee pursuant to the rated requirements, evaluation criteria, and methodology as set up in the RFP. Intake 2 of the modernization funding program implementation stream requires that all projects are complete no later than September 22nd, 2022. and the successful respondent confirmed and verified that they could meet the requirement. Getting into the financial implications here, the county and local municipalities received up to $97,500 from the Provincial Modernization Program to fund 65% of this project. As outlined in a report to County Council on March 9th, 2021, excuse me, the county also allocated $52,000 of our one-time modernization funds to offset the additional 35% required for implementation, staffing, training, and licensing fees associated with completing the project. The successful respondent provided a total project price of $85,000. This pricing included all requirements outlined in the RFP and the first year of licensing. With the funding received as part of intake 2 and the one-time modernization funds allocated to offset the county's required contribution for the project, there will be no budget impact to the county or local municipalities for the development, implementation, and first year licensing of the solution. The implementation and customization of the system to match and enhance our current processes will require county and local staff input and time to ensure the project is successful. The successful respondent also provided yearly renewal costs for the solution, which includes all software features required in the RFP, unlimited users for both county and local municipalities, support and maintenance and product updates for a total cost of $75,000 yearly. This yearly cost would be included in future county budgets. In terms of alignment with strategic focus, this is promoting service excellence. The goal is to innovate or transform municipal service delivery, which really fits really well with this program. Recommendation today is that Middlesex County Council accept the selection committee's recommendation to award Cloud Permit as a successful respondent of the development tracking solution RFP for a total cost of $85,000. And happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Okay, thank you, Chris and Dirk, for that. Questions, comments? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Just one through the warden. Thank you. A good report, and I think this is a great way to move forward. Just one question. It says that the county and the municipalities got this funding together, and so this system's going to be put in place. But then somewhere along the line, I heard somebody say that local municipalities could opt in. So does that mean that the county's going to run the program first? And then if municipalities want to opt in, they do? And is there a cost to that then? Or like, how does that work? Or did I miss something along the way?
Do you want to touch on? We both unmuted at the same time. Dirk, I'll let you start the answer, and then I can answer anything.
Okay, thank you. We're both watching each other. Sorry, through the warden. So the system would be set up, and there would be no additional cost if a municipality wanted to input their processes into it, and that's hopefully the expectation. But it's not a requirement in the sense that a municipality could use another system if they chose to, or could continue with their existing more manual processes. That's why that sort of opt-in wording was included there, but there would not be an additional cost, if you will, for that.
Any other questions or comments from council? Councillor Mayhew.
Keep doing that.
Thank you very much. I was getting a hand instead of an arrow there. Madam Warden, thank you for the recognition. Chris, that's a great way to go. It'll streamline things very much. Just to reflect on something that's been said in the past, and along with Councillor Vanderheyden's comments about cost, software licensing has now become a major cost of municipalities. Before, it was just a minor budget line. But I've noticed in the past that even a small municipality like Southwest Middlesex, our costs now are getting into the large six-figure numbers. What would be the future of licensing on this on an annual basis? I understand that the RFP included the first year's cost. Is there subsequent costs on an annual basis for licensing? And what would those amounts?
Thank you. Sorry. Through the warden to Councillor Mayhew. Yeah, the yearly renewal fees is $75,000 per year, which includes unlimited users for both the county level, as well as the local municipalities to manage their local files as well.
Any follow-up, Councillor Mayhew? Are you good with that?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Warden. But the monies do add up collectively when we look at all the software that's necessary to run municipalities. It's becoming burdensome to some degree, I'd say. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, you've got a recommended motion in front of you to accept the selection of the committee's recommendation to award cloud permit as the successful respondent. Can I get a mover and a seconder for that, please? Councillor DeVitt and Councillor Ropp. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Okay. Now, I do think I had seen Ian Jeffries from KPMG joining us. I'm wondering if that's him on the phone now.
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Then council will circle back to KPMG's presentation of our 2020 audit report. We can certainly hear you, Ian. And so at this time, I'd like to welcome you, and I'll turn it over to you at this point.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Zoom doesn't seem to be liking me this afternoon, so you get the pleasure of just listening to my voice and not looking at me, which might be the better option anyway. So I am going to work my way through our audit findings report. I know it's been pre-distributed and I know all of you have read it. I'm going to start with the executive summary, which is on page 5. Please, if you've got questions as I go through, because I can't see you, just interrupt me and jump in. If you'd rather save them till the end, that's fine as well.
Ian,
So
sorry to interrupt. Would you like me to put up the presentation? Would you like me to put up the presentation for everyone?
Sure. If you want to do that, that'd be great. Again, I can't see it, but I'll just tell you which page I'm on as I move from one to the next, and that way we can be synced up.
Perfect. I think you said number 5 to start, so we're at the executive summary.
Perfect. That's where we want to start. All right. So in terms of what's new in 2020, again, similar a little bit to last year when we had this conversation, COVID is a bit of an overlay on the whole audit and the activities of the county over the course of the year. We'll touch on that in a bit. We've got a new auditing standard, which we'll touch on, but very briefly. There haven't been any changes to our audit planning report. And then in the lower left of page 5, the only things left in terms of finalizing the audit are the receipt of the management representation letter, which can't come back until after today's meeting anyway, completing discussions with you, and then obtaining evidence of council's approval of the financial statements. The final review of certain file sections was done a long time ago, so that's no longer outstanding. We don't have any uncorrected differences that remain that way. We'll touch on that a little bit later on, and no new initial selections of significant accounting policies and practices to bring to your attention. If we move to page 6, I can confirm that we are independent of the county. The audit report that we'll provide pending the approval of the statements by council doesn't mean much unless it's given to you from a position of independence. And I can confirm that for you now. If we look at the following page, so what's new in 2020? A couple of things. Again, COVID is a bit of an overlay, so we've done the audit entirely remotely, which is a bit like we did it last year. Things went very, very well. So between Cindy and Ewa and the entire team at the county, we had no problem getting information that we needed. Getting access to speak to people, albeit we did it over the telephone or by way of Zoom. But we don't have any issues with the logistics of the way the audit was undertaken, and we've got all the audit evidence we need to be able to issue our report. Materiality hasn't changed from the level that was provided to you in our audit plan. And just given the fact that COVID is with us here, our risk assessment processes are a little different. But given the nature of the organization, the way that revenue is earned, and the nature of the expenses of the organization, we don't have any increased risks this year after that assessment. We do have a couple of unusual items in terms of funding from various governments for COVID-related items, but those are pretty standard in the industry and in the environment. So we worked remotely, which is on the following page, and it made a little bit of a difference in the way in which I, as the partner, supervised our team. Ideally, we'd be sitting in person at the county, but we weren't, so we came up with different ways to interact as a team, albeit through Zoom on our end. Auditing Standard 540 on the following page had a very limited impact on the financial statements, but we've done everything in accordance with that auditing standard that we are required to, and have nothing to report in response to the adoption of that new standard. If we move to the following page, audit risks and results, the first is fraud risk from revenue recognition. This is a fraud risk that we have to assess at every audit that we do. In the case of the county, we've rebutted this fraud risk because performance isn't measured on earnings, and revenue sources and those types of things are fairly static and constant one year to the next. The fraud risk from management override of controls, which is on the following page, is a similar risk, albeit we cannot rebut this one. So we have done everything that we're required to do under professional standards to evaluate the fraud risk from management override of controls, and we don't have any issues to report as a result of our testing and undertaking of those required procedures. On the following page, accounts that comprise significant balances for the county. There are a couple here: accounts receivable, deferred revenue and revenues, and accounts payable and expenses. We've audited all of these items substantively. We don't have any issues to report as a result of our testing, and certainly are pleased with the books and records and the accounting for these items undertaken by management over the course of the year. The one thing here that is of note is the payroll and employee future benefits. This is an estimate that's prepared by management and their actuarial expert. So as a result of that new auditing standard I alluded to a little bit earlier, that has required a bit of a change on our end, in that we've had our actuarial experts look at the work of your actuarial experts, which is now a requirement, and we don't have any issues or anything that's come out of that testing. It's just one extra level of diligence. And the rationale behind that is that typically this is a very large number on many organizations. It does have significant estimates in it in respect of discount rates and other things. So we're now obligated to do that. We were doing a bit of it in the past to get ourselves comfortable, and this is just an extra layer of diligence that's now required by the standard that we've completed. We move to the following page, tangible capital assets. As you're all well aware, the county disposed of two very significant assets right at the tail end of the year. And so Cindy and I and Ewa and others have worked through the assessment of that sale or sale leaseback, both in terms of disclosure in the financial statements and accounting for the two elements of the sale in the financial statements. Honestly, this one wasn't straightforward, plain vanilla, just by virtue of the manner in which the deal was struck. The take back of the vendor debt was a bit unusual, and the free rent that came along with that interest-free debt to the county made things a little bit difficult in terms of assessing and accounting for this. But between Cindy and Ewa and I, we've got that squared away in the financial statements. There are a couple of extra line items there that, had the transaction just gone through in cash or something very straightforward, you wouldn't have. But given the nature of the transaction, we've got prepaid rent on the balance sheet, and obviously the debt owing from the purchaser there as well, which you will see in the financial statements and in the disclosure of the notes. And then the gain, obviously, on the sale of the properties is included in the financial statements as well. So aside from those things that are a bit unique with respect to the transaction, nothing else to report in terms of tangible capital assets over the course of 2020. Financial statement presentation and disclosure on the following page is what we would expect it to be. We don't have any issues or concerns at this time. But there are a couple of standards coming in the near future, which will make sure that Cindy and Ewa and others have a good understanding of. They will take a bit of time and effort on management's behalf, but we will make sure that you're well apprised of the requirements and the timing of those, Cindy, such that we can work together to make sure that you're done on time and don't have any questions. And if you do, we'll help you out. So on the following page, there are no corrected or uncorrected differences booked as a result of the audit, which is great. You as council should think very highly of that, simply because it gives you the confidence that your team is accounting for the operations of the county on an ongoing basis that is absolutely, perfect in terms of getting you the information you need to make decisions. It's not that we're coming in and making 10 or 12 or 15 journal entries that would really bring into question the quality of information you get throughout the year when we're not here. So that's something, that we like to see as auditors, that you should be proud of as the county, and just know that Cindy and Ewa and their team do a very good job of keeping the books of the county amongst the many other things that they do. There are 5 appendices in the back. I wasn't going to touch on any of them in great detail unless any of you have questions about them. And I think with that, Warden, I will transfer it back to you to field any questions that members may have.
Okay, that's great. Thank you very much for that walkthrough, Ian. We appreciate it. Before I open it up to council, I might just ask Cindy if there's anything that you wanted to add or say at this time.
Thanks, and through the warden. At this time, I'd just like to say a big thanks to Ian and the KPMG team. I'd also like to say a big thanks to the finance team and Ewa that Ian has mentioned a few times during this presentation. And next year, I'm actually going to include Ewa in some of the updates that I'm doing. This year ran smoothly, even though we had COVID and everything was virtually. So again, a big thank you, and looking forward to next year, and hopefully maybe more of a different approach, hybrid, rather than just virtual.
Well, it can only get better, right? The approach can only get better. So we're on the right track. Thank you very much, Cindy. Okay, council, any questions or comments at this time? Councillor Vanderheyden.
Thank you, through the warden. Good to hear you, Ian, and it's always good to have a clean audit. We're always happy with that, so thank you. I just have one kind of strange question. In your presentation, you said that, you and your team had to do a number of different things because everything's virtual now, and I think you kind of started that last year and got into it really well this year with the audit. But in your statement, you also said that internal controls, there were no changes in the county's internal controls that you looked at. And I just find it kind of interesting that when people are not working in the same spot, that there wouldn't be some type of change in internal controls. I was just thinking about that, because when you're all together, like I say, in a department, it's easy to control things over and over. Like you see each other and you're doing things, but if you're everybody in a different building and everybody's home, I trust our team to do what they need to do to make it all correct. But I just found it interesting when you said that there was no changes and there was no changes needed.
Sorry, Councillor Vanderheyden, I might have confused you in the way I expressed that. There was no issue in terms of, from control from our standpoint of getting audit evidence, dealing with audit evidence. There is absolutely change in control in the organization to deal with the fact that people are working remotely. So my apologies. We've documented what we've done, and what we're obligated to do is those controls and processes change. We have to understand them and document them, and we've done that. Ideally, we'll put them back to the way they were when things go back to closer to normal next year or whenever. But ultimately, there is control changes in the organization. There weren't control changes in terms of how we related with Ewa and Cindy and team to get information and exchange information. So sorry, I made that a little more confusing than it needed to be.
I appreciate that answer. Thank you, through the warden. It was just, I took it the other way, where it was like the controls that were in our system to make sure that, the double checks, et cetera, were in place.
Okay, any other comments or questions at this time for Ian while we've got him? Okay, seeing none, once again, thanks for joining us, Ian. And certainly I would jump off the comments that Cindy made herself about thanks to you and your team. I think this audit, this report shows how well our team and your team work together. And on behalf of council, want to thank you for that. I know that Cindy certainly enjoys working with you guys, and what she gets from you is certainly very helpful. And we don't look for that for changing in anytime soon. So thanks very much for joining us, Ian.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you for your confidence in us, and it's certainly a privilege to serve the county, and we enjoy every minute. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon, everybody. Stay safe, and thank you very much.
Great. Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Okay, bye now. Okay, so we're going to move ahead, and we're still in our new business, but we're on 8C, which is request for quotation, a tandem truck with snowplow equipment. And this one is going to be reported to us from Chris. So over to you, Chris, on this.
Thank you, Madam Warden. These are both fairly straightforward reports. As usual, we tender our equipment for replacement a year ahead of time, just because of some slowdowns in the supply chain. This has been especially critical over the last couple of years. So you'll see these are two trucks that we use for winter maintenance. So the first quotation was for a tandem truck. Again, it's the low bid was received from Team Truck Centers at a cost of $290,240 plus HST for this piece of equipment, and just recommending their bid be accepted.
Hey, any questions on this? Then I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion in front of us. Councillor Vanderheyden and Councillor Warwick. All opposed? And that's carried. And this one is pretty straightforward as well, Chris, but if you just want to walk us through this one, it would be great.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Warden. Same type of quote, same type of reason. I just note for council's interest, this is, I think, the 6th or 7th piece of equipment in our fleet now that has the aluminum box as opposed to the traditional steel. We're evaluating those through the life cycle of the equipment. As you know, I believe these pieces of equipment stay in our fleet for about 10 years. So we're seeing some of the ones getting a little bit older in our fleet. We're very pleased with the performance. They're much lighter, they're much more durable, much more resistant to corrosion. So we're putting these through. We usually try to get about 1 a year to put through the fleet. So quite happy with the price that was submitted on this one. A little bit higher than estimates, but we're still happy to see it coming through $347,268 plus HST, again from Team Truck Centers, and recommending this quote be accepted.
Great. Any comment on this report? Councillor Warwick and then Councillor Robb.
Thank you. And through the warden to Chris, just I heard you say a year. So this means that these will both be in use for the next winter?
Through the warden and Councillor Warwick. Yeah, these will come into the fleet by next November. We just received the last couple pieces we bought last year around this time. We usually like to receive them in the summer just to give us a bit of elbow room before the snow starts to fly. So again, they're taking a lot longer. Usually we would see these things show up, April, May timeframe. Now they're coming around August, September. So getting a little bit tight for these pieces of equipment to be delivered. So yeah, these are for delivery for winter of 2022-2023.
Councillor Robb.
Thank you. Through the warden, Chris, just a quick question. Can you remind me how many triaxles do we have in our fleet?
That is a good question, Councillor Robb, and I can get back to you very quickly here. So count these up again. Can't recall off the exact top of my head.
Okay. Maybe we could maybe just send it forward if you get a chance.
Absolutely. What I'll do is I'll send you the copy of the equipment list that will have everything in the fleet, and then you can have a look at what's there, what's being replaced in the next 5 years, but it has the whole list of our equipment within the fleet.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in front of you, please. Councillor Cornelissen and Councillor Richards. All opposed? And that one's carried. Okay, Councillor comments. Councillor Vanderheyden.
Thank you. Through the Warden, just wanted to update everybody on FCM. We were working very hard on the election, of course, with the federal government coming up on the 20th, and we've been putting all of our hats together and making sure that everybody understands the asks of communities across the country. I've done incredible amount of interviews across the country to push our agendas so that infrastructure, climate change, housing, all the issues that we all deal with are being heard, and it's been quite incredible. And I appreciate the support that I get from all of you to do that. Next week, we have our board meetings. They start on the 20th and they'll be all week, so that will be interesting. I just wanted to remind everybody that the Sustainable Communities Conference is coming up October 19th to 21st. Now it will be all virtual. And every time I think of that conference, I think of our former colleague, Mr. Councillor Edmondson. He used to go all the time, and he always loved the Sustainable Communities Conference. And so I just encourage everyone, if you've got opportunity, I know it's virtual and I know we're getting tired of being on Zoom, but there's lots of information there, and it's a great opportunity to learn. As we know, through COVID, we've seen how much and how important sustainability is to all of us. So there's an opportunity to learn a little more, because we can learn every single day. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Councillor Vanderheyden. Any other councillor comments? Councillor Ropp.
Thank you, through the Warden. I just wanted to make comment on, I know most of you are aware that we had quite a storm come through North Middlesex on Sunday evening. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the county works crews, the North Middlesex work crews, also to the Hydro One that for getting everything back in order. We complain when things aren't done, but they did a great job getting things cleaned up and getting our hydro back on. Mine was back on at 3:15 this morning, but some people were done before. And when you consider how much damage there was, it's great work. I just wanted to hand that out.
Appreciate that, Councillor Ropp, and certainly we hope that, I know that there's a lot of cleanup in Elsa Craig. Certainly we wish the best for your municipality on that. Councillor Warwick.
Yes, thank you. And through the Warden, I just wanted to mention that on September 7th, I was pleased on behalf of South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Group to speak to 5 different CBC affiliates across Ontario regarding the community transportation program that we have and that we champion. And I did stress to them how we have worked in hand with our neighboring municipalities and our neighboring counties. And that was the way that I thought we should all proceed. So I was very pleased to be able to be featured on CBC that day.
Thanks for that update, Councillor Warwick. I was able to hear you, and you did a great job, and certainly you've become quite the advocate for our community transportation program. So thanks for that update. Any other comments? Okay, bylaws. Marcy. I get to look to the side to say Marcy, you're not in your office.
So we have 7129, a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the September 14th, 2021 meeting of County Council.
Okay, if I can get a mover and a seconder for the first and second reading of that bylaw, please. Councillor Elliott and Councillor Vanderheyden, all opposed? And that's carried. And for the third and final reading, a mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Brennan and Councillor DeVitt, all opposed, and that's carried. Moving into the committee of the whole, we do not have a delegation, but we do have some reports from our county officers, and the first few are from Cindy. So I will hand it over to you, Cindy, to walk us through the 2020 surplus report at this time.
Thanks, and through the Warden. This report outlines the surplus for the County of Middlesex and the library for 2020 year. 2020 was not a traditional year. In 2020, operations starting in March were impacted by COVID-19. The county was able to react quickly to the pandemic and put measures in place to assist with funding and operational pressures. For instance, if possible, staff worked from home. Library branches were temporarily closed, and many programs and services were offered virtually. And of course, council meetings moved to a virtual platform. The county also put in place cost containment strategies. At the end of the year, as a result of these cost containment strategies, there were decreased costs in areas such as travel, conventions and training, and wages and benefits. However, there were also additional costs that were incurred as a result of the COVID-19, such as computer equipment required to work from home, additional cleaning costs, PPE, COVID-19 screening, additional staff hired for land ambulance, and the county also incurred loss of revenue from budget line items such as the county parking lot, room rentals, and user fees. The good news was that in 2020, the county received additional provincial and federal funding to offset pressures. And these were in the areas of land ambulance, long-term care, and early on. The county received provincial social service relief funding, SSRF, to support homelessness. Funding from the Ministry of Education flowed directly to our licensed childcare centers. Agencies and individuals that received funding were very grateful. The county also received Safe Restart funding. Funds not used in 2020 can be used in 2021. The unused funds have been allocated to a deferred revenue account. In 2020, approximately $880,000 of this funding was used to offset lost revenue and additional costs directly associated with COVID-19. The county is required to report back to the province of Ontario regarding this funding. The county has already responded back as required in 2021. I will keep updating council on Safe Restart funding during the year. As part of the 2021 budget process, the Budget Committee and Council recommended and approved the use of $1 million of the Library 2020 surplus, 50% of the winter maintenance surplus, funds from tax rate stabilization reserved to keep the tax rate increase to 1.7%, and funds from the one-time modernization provincial funding. If the actual Library 2020 surplus was greater than the $1 million, it was also recommended that this amount be applied to the county tax rate stabilization fund. And this year, in fact, it was. This was a one-time recommendation based on the impact of COVID-19, our pandemic. Tax rate stabilization. As you know, the tax rate stabilization is used to mitigate future budget impacts. In 2021, the county is still dealing with COVID-19, and it is expected that these impacts will continue into 2022 and beyond. After the transfer, the balance in the tax rate stabilization will be over $9 million. At this time, I'm recommending that the year-end surplus from 2020, as outlined in the report, be transferred to the tax rate stabilization. This is consistent with prior year's recommendations. Thanks, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Cindy. Any questions on this particular report? Councillor Vanderhagen.
Thank you, through the warden. This might be something that the budget committee will deal with when the budget committee meets. You know, these are big numbers that are going into the tax rate stabilization fund, but we are in the middle of COVID, so I understand the rationale between, you know, putting that aside for where the need will lie coming out of this. And so I totally get all of that, but at some point we need to, you know, when you're north of $9 million in a stabilization fund, maybe we have to have a discussion at budget about what that appropriate number would be, or or, you know, what ramifications will happen down the road. I guess that's just what I wanted to mention, that, you know, I'm sure the budget committee will be all over this and checking, you know, where the needs are and where the gaps are that we need to use this funding for. But, you know, I appreciate the county doing a really great job. And I mean, we just had the audit report that was very clean. So I think the county's doing a fantastic job moving forward through their budget and getting all the numbers where they need them so that we can move forward. Because, you know, the flip side of that would be that they have to go back to the municipalities to find funding to fit these holes. And then that's never a positive either. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not really a question, it's more a comment. And congratulations everybody for a job well done.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Vanderheyden. I would agree with you that I think that those are discussions that will, you know, be very pertinent when the budget committee meets, not only for this upcoming year, but I would hazard to say even for the following year. I think we're not exactly sure how COVID is going to affect us in, you know, the next year or two. So, but appreciate those comments, and I'm sure that everybody on the budget committee will remember them when the discussions start. Any other comments? So with that, then there is a recommendation in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder for that, please. Councillor Warwick, and a seconder, Councillor Elliott. All opposed? And that's carried. Moving on to the 2020 consolidated financial statements, and we're sticking with you, Cindy, so back to you.
Great, thanks, and through the warden. In front of council today is the 2020 County of Middlesex consolidated financial statements, including notes. The 4 statements include the consolidated statement of financial position, the consolidated statement of operations, the consolidated statement of change in net financial assets, and the consolidated statement of cash flows. Again, I would like to thank the finance team for all their hard work on year-end, the audit, and the input in preparing these statements. The financial statements have been examined by KPMG, and you just heard Ian talk about that earlier, the external auditors for the Corporation of the County of Middlesex. The responsibility of the external auditor is to express an opinion on whether the financial statements are fairly representative in all material respects in accordance with GAAP. Some highlights of the statements include, in the consolidated statement of financial position, in 2020, the county's net financial asset increased by 32.4 million, mostly due to an increase in cash, investments, and the new mortgage receivable. The majority of these increases are directly tied to the sale of the county buildings. And again, I think you heard the auditor go into a little bit of detail in regard to the sale of the building. The accumulated surplus has increased in 2020 as a result of an increase in reserve funds. Again, this is tied to the sale of the county building. I'll probably be saying that over and over again, as well as COVID, and the use of proceeds approved by council. In the consolidated statement of operations, total revenues are higher in 2020 compared to budget and 2019 actuals. This is mostly tied to additional COVID-19 revenue received from the province and the impact on the sale of the buildings. And I will point out that the actual social housing costs in 2020 were lower by approximately 675,000 than budgeted. And this was related to, again, it was COVID-19 and the delay in the business cases. There are 2 notes that I want to quickly highlight. The first one is note 16, which outlines the details of the sale of the county buildings, 50 King Street and 399 Rideout Street. In compliance with the CPA, Canada Public Sector Accounting Handbook, the financial statements include the present value of the mortgage receivable and the prepaid rent. The second note is note 18, which is the effects of COVID-19. The note includes a number of activities that the county took in relation to the pandemic. At this time, an estimate of the future financial impact of the pandemic is not practical. So at this time, I'm recommending that council accept the 2020 consolidated financial statements of the Corporation of the County of Middlesex, and they be posted on the county website. And of course, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thanks, Cindy. Any questions or comments on this report? Okay, you've got a recommended or motion in front of you, and I would ask for a mover and a seconder at this time, please. Councillor Richards. And a seconder, Councillor Warwick. All opposed? And that is carried. Continuing with Cindy, the 2020 trust financial statements.
Thanks, and through the warden. The second set of statements are the 2020 trust financial statements, which include Strathmeer Lodge and the library. The Lodge Trust is funds held on behalf of residents of the lodge. Residents make deposits and use the funds for purchases such as the hairdresser, tuck shop, etc. The Library Trust Fund is an amount donated to the library. The trust include an amount for Strathroy Library Trust Fund and the Clark Wright Bequest Trust Fund. At this time, I'm recommending that the 2020 trust financial statement for the Corporation of the County of Middlesex be accepted and posted on the website. Happy to answer any question. And these statements obviously are a lot less complex than the other ones that we just went through.
Thank you, Cindy. Questions on this one? Okay, seeing none, then a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in front of you, please. Councillor Mayhew and Councillor Smith. All opposed? That's carried. And I did that wrong. The 2020 Middlesex London Emergency Medical Services Authority financial statements. And again, over to you, Cindy.
Thanks, and through the warden. The 2020 financial statements for MLEMS consist of 4 statements and the notes. The financial statements reflect the activities during 2020. There are a couple items I'd like to highlight. 1, the statement of operation shows that the actual revenues received from the province of Ontario were greater than the budget. The province provided funding for COVID-19 related expenditures. Expenditures included hiring additional staff and, of course, supply costs. Note 6 includes the effects of COVID-19. Number 2, in the statement of financial position, the employee future benefits increased in 2020 compared to 2019. Again, I believe you heard the auditor talking a little bit about this. We actually hire a consultant and have a valuation done. And as you heard today, KPMG also looks at the valuation and has another review of that as well. The increase is mainly related to WSIB claim increases as identified during the valuation completed in 2020. Note 2 provides additional details. At this time, I'm recommending that the MLEMS financial statements be approved. Thanks, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Any questions on this one? Okay, then the motion in front of you, I would ask for a mover and a seconder on this one, please. Councillor Ropp. And the seconder, Councillor Cornelison. All opposed? And this one's carried. And then finally, the 2020 library financial statements.
So the last set of financial statements are for the library board. Note 10 includes the effects of COVID-19 on the library system. The library system clearly was a lot different than many of our operations in the county. One of the biggest impacts was the temporary closure of branches in March 2020 and the temporary staff layoffs. The actual salary expenditures are lower than budget and contribute to the library surplus. Operations continued through the year, starting with virtual programming and later moved to a low contact service delivery approach, which included curbside pickup, virtual programming, and scheduled computer appointments. The early on team were quick to adjust to virtual programs and supports for families during the year. Funding for early on is provided by the Ministry of Education, and this funding continued in 2020. The expenditures also included spending for the early on capital projects. These projects are funded 100% by the province of Ontario. I'm happy to report that the Ilderton project is completed and the Strathroy project is close to being completed. These additional capital projects will be great assets to our community. Thanks to provincial COVID-19 Safe Restart funding, additional expenditures for COVID-19 related expenditures and lost revenue were able to be offset. At this time, I'm recommending that the financial statements be approved and the surplus as outlined in the report be applied. Thanks, and happy to answer any questions.
Okay, that's great, Cindy. Any questions on this one? All right, then seeing none on this, then I would ask for a mover and a seconder on this recommendation. Councillor Warwick, any seconder? Councillor Elliott? All opposed? And that is carried. So just before I move on to the next report, I just want to take a minute to, first of all, thank Cindy for all the work in putting all of this together, but really a congratulations, pat on the back, shout out, whatever you want to say to everybody on the team and throughout the county. I think there was no question that when 2020 hit us, we didn't know how it was going to turn out and what was going to happen. And certainly, I think that we can see by the reports that were delivered, it was a really measured approach to how we were going to approach spending and what projects were going to be done and how it was all going to be managed. And that's why we're in the position that we are now. Certainly, I don't think that the work ever stopped, but it was more of a measured approach, not knowing exactly what the year was, how the year was going to unfold. So I want to thank everybody and congratulate everybody on the situation and the position that we are in today. And Bill, I think you wanted to add something as well.
Oh, I think you summed it up perfectly. I just I guess I've been here a couple of decades now, and I don't know that I'm more proud of anything than the organizational discipline that was used financially this year across the board. It was really incredible, from land ambulance to what we did in our nursing homes, all the way through the discipline that's in the organization. We talk about budgeting from a zero-based budgeting approach, but then it's very similar to handing, I was saying to the warden one day, it's very similar to handing your child $20 and sending them to the store and being so proud when they come back with change instead of buying another bag of candy. Basically, in the zero-based budgeting approach, we hand $20 to our staff and say, okay, go do this. Now, what happens when circumstances change? And the discipline the organization showed across the board was something I'm extremely, extremely proud of. So it's a proud day for me.
Thank you for that, Bill. Okay, moving on to the 2021 revised and the 2022 agendas or meeting calendars, excuse me, for the County Council and Library. Marcy.
Thank you, Madam Warden. So this report includes the 2021 meeting schedule for the remainder of the year and a proposed 2022 meeting schedule. With respect to the 2021 calendar, it has been revised to indicate which meetings will be hybrid and which will be virtual. The December 2021 meeting has also been moved from the 14th to the 7th to be closer to the inaugural. With respect to the 2022 calendar, this calendar has been set similar to previous years. There's only one meeting in January, July, and August, and the meetings will alternate between virtual and hybrid. Library board meetings will follow the same format as the corresponding county council meeting. And the only conference date we don't know yet is OSIM. The rest have been included in the calendar. So the recommendation is to approve both calendars as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Marcy. Any questions on the proposed calendars in front of you? All right, then can I get a mover and a seconder for the motion in front of you, recommended motion in front of you? Councillor Elliott and Councillor Richards. All opposed? And that's carried. Thank you. Okay, a report from Brent today with regards to the Strathmeer Lodge Staff Educator Contract Renewal. Brent.
Thank you, Warden. Through you to Council. Council has seen this item on a number of previous occasions, but just to remind Council, the Lodge does have a contracted staff educator in place, and that has been the same person since 2010. The position is invaluable in a number of different ways. First and foremost, it helps us to be in compliance with the various staff education requirements spelled out in our long-term care homes legislation. And it also helps us to keep in compliance with a lot of other important legislation, notably the Occupational Health and Safety Act. The position also is an integral part of our quality improvement efforts, and the position does a lot of performing of quality care related audits. The educator contract is up for renewal again, and the proposed renewed contract before Council proposes a 1.7% increase in the hourly wage rate. So I am recommending that the contract between the Lodge and Ms. Hodgins, the staff educator, be renewed for a period September 1, 2021 to August 31st, 2022, and recommending that I, as Lodge Administrator, be authorized to execute the agreement document. Happy to address any Council questions in support of my recommendation.
Great. Thank you for that, Brent. And as you said, he's open for questions. Are there any at this time on this renewal? Councillor DeVete.
Thank you, Warden. This isn't a question so much as an observation and a comment. Since I've been on the County Council, it seems to me that there's really, I think the wording in the report was that there's unanimous support for the reappointment of the trainer. And I think that speaks volumes to satisfaction and the quality of the service that's being provided. So it was just an observation. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Councillor DeVete. Any other comments or questions? Then I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the motion in front of you. Councillor DeVete. And a seconder, Councillor Warwick. All opposed? And that's carried. Next one up in front of us is the Newberry Official Plan Amendment number 13 from an Dodge Chrysler. It's file number 39-new-OPA 13. And this is being presented by Dirk.
Thank you. Through the Warden. So this is an application by McNaughton Dodge Chrysler to redesignate a 0.23 hectare portion of their property from commercial to residential, and really would permit the development of 2 single detached dwellings. If you're familiar with the area, it's really right across Green Street from their actual dealership, and it's a grassed area that they use for some overflow for motorhomes. So the report goes briefly over the planning policies, which of course do direct residential redevelopment intensification to settlement areas on full municipal services. And I am recommending approval, and I do believe it is consistent with the PPS and conforms with the official plans, etc. I'd certainly be happy to answer any questions.
Great, thanks, Dirk. Any questions on this file? And I would ask for a mover and a seconder for the recommendation in front of you. Councillor Warwick and Councillor Brennan. All opposed? And that's carried. Okay. Moving on to correspondence and information items. General administration payables August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $394,941.19. Planning payables August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $6,521.06. Social service payables August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $388,094.65. Strathmeer Lodge payables, August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $208,245.94. Road payables, August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $1,669,859.97. MLPS payables, August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $1,154,975.07. ITS payables, August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $248,880.46. Economic Development payables, August 1st to September 3rd, 2021, totaling $40,322.56. Electronic payments for August 2021, totaling $2,032,646.24. A mover and a seconder to receive those items for information. Councillor Mayhew. And a seconder, please. Councillor Ropp. All opposed? And those are carried. Strathmeer Lodge Census Report for July 2021. Councillor Vanderheyden.
Just I could through the warden to Brent. I see that we still have a current wait list, so that's always a positive because that means there's always people waiting to get into the lodge, and you know the turnover, et cetera, et cetera. Just wonder if we could have just a brief update on how things are moving forward. You know, we've been in COVID for a long time now, and how things were. The things that you had to do at the very beginning, and I know they're all like a second hat now, but is there anything that you require there, or is there something that you need to report to us that we ought to know?
Thank you through the warden to the councillor. Just to let you know that we are working towards the third dose that you probably heard about, and that's for the residents, that's the booster shot. So long-term care home residents are to get that booster shot, and we're currently working with the local public health unit to arrange that to get done. Other than that, pretty status quo.
Any follow-up to that, Councillor Vanderheyden? You good? Okay. Final approval of Clear Skies Plan of Subdivision Phase 2, File 39T-MC1401. Letter from Good Roads, Re-Annual Managing Winter Operations Workshop. AMO Policy Update, September 1st, 2021. AMO Policy Update, August 23rd, 2021. AMO Policy Update, August 19th, 2021. Letter reappointment of CEO by London Middlesex Community Housing. And I believe Councillor Cornelissen, you wanted to speak to this.
Thank you, Madam Warden. I did want to share with Council that I was able to participate in the selection committee for the final 3 applicants. And as you can see from the letter that we received from LMNCH, that Mr. Chisholm is certainly very qualified. He brings a great wealth of experience and knowledge to the position. So we're certainly optimistic that it'll be moved forward. I'd also add that the city has appointed Deputy Mayor Josh Morgan along with Phil Squire to the board. And so we're looking forward to having a very productive session of board meetings. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Adrian. Any questions or comments on that report? Okay, final approval for Ridge Crossing Plan of Condominium, file number 39T-LB-CDM2101. Municipal Modernization Program, third intake. And a mover and a seconder, please, to receive those items for information. Councillor Richards and Councillor Warwick. All opposed? And that's carried. Any inquiries? Okay, in front of you, you've got the list of upcoming county council meetings. We'll of course meet, the next meeting will be September 28th, and that will be a virtual meeting. And of course, this Thursday is the Wardens Charity Golf Tournament at the Fox in Granton. And for those of you around the Horseshoe and staff that have signed up, certainly I want to thank you for that support and extend that to not only your staffs, but a number of business partners that the county has. Looks like it's going to be a great day, and certainly I appreciate the support for the charity of my choice, which of course is the Lucan Legion. And then mark your calendars for Saturday, November 27th, which will be the Wardens Banquet, and that will be held in Lucan. Well, that was a quick meeting, so I would ask for a motion to adjourn, a mover and a seconder to adjourn our meeting at 2:12 p.m. Lots of hands for this one. Councillor Vanderheyden and Councillor Warwick, all opposed, and that's carried.